Welcome to the Brain Boost program. This program is designed to help you explore new ideas for activities that can help keep your brain healthy if you have early memory problems or have been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment or very mild dementia. If you have an interest in finding new ways to maximize your brain health, this program is right for you. Look for the accompanying episode guide to help you navigate the activities in this program. I'm Dr. Greg Jica, and I'm a neurologist who focuses on taking care of patients with memory problems caused by diseases like Alzheimer's. I'm also a neuroscientist searching for new ways to slow and/or stop memory problems in aging. I've been researching ways to promote healthy brain aging for almost 35 years now, and while we continue to look for new medicines and potential cures for diseases like Alzheimer's, you should know that there's a lot you can do to promote your own brain health. Things such as mental stimulation, social engagement, physical activity, diet, and many other daily activities, all of which can make a huge impact. We hope you try some of these activities at home or come up with your own. Most of all, we want you to realize that you can take control of your own brain health through such activities.
Welcome back to this new episode of Brain Boost. Today's episode is focused on the topic of game night. Games come in all different types, from board games to dice and tile games. Some are card games and others are group games and video games. With the popularity of video games, the arcade games from the 1970s and 80s are making a comeback, allowing people to play pinball and Pac-Man again. Sporting events like baseball, football, and basketball and soccer are popular with millions of fans worldwide. You may have some board games in a cabinet in your home. Take some time to pull those out and look at them. Maybe even plan a game night to share them with friends. Or, what about games you might have played outside? Games like Ring Around the Rosie, Kick the Can, or Tag. Games that involve siblings or friends down the street. What was your favorite game you played growing up? Do you have a favorite game now? I love a good card game. Games have been such a big part of our culture. Games actually can boost our brain power. They give us something to focus on and stimulate our brain connections. They enhance our mental and thinking ability, physical ability, and social abilities by engaging together. Strategy games help our brains to think 2 or 3 steps ahead and use our executive functioning abilities. Game night is a way to spend time playing together or watching others play. On today's episode, we'll be sharing some activities you can do for a game night. You can do these with your loved ones or invite some friends over for a fun time. You may want to watch your favorite team compete on the television and sing the fight song to cheer them on. No matter what you choose to do, we want you to find ways to connect with others. Not everyone loves games, and that is okay. Crafts provide opportunities for us to not only make games, but can provide ways for us to cheer on others and celebrate victories. The possibilities of what we can create are many. Let's join Kelly now for some game crafts.
What was your favorite game growing up? Did you play kickball, kick the can? My favorite was Spotlight. Not sure what Spotlight is? It's when you would play hide and seek in the dark. We would do it in the summertime and it was always so fun. I'm a very competitive person, and when I win, I like to celebrate. So for this craft, we're gonna make some confetti poppers. You want a toilet paper roll or an empty paper towel roll. You're gonna need scissors for this, some balloons, and any type of colored paper that you have. I'm using index cards, but you can use construction paper, regular paper, weighted paper, really anything. And this is a great craft for all levels, and I'll explain how we can make it a little bit easier for people that might have some trouble with their dexterity. So you take the paper towel holder, that's going to be your main thing, and you take the balloon. The first thing you want to do is tie the balloon up, like just as you would tie a normal balloon. Okay. Whoops. There we go. So once it's tied, you just want to cut off that bottom half right there. So that's what we're going to do. Just hold it however you'd like, but make sure you just get that top half off. Okay. And we're going to take our opening and put it on the toilet paper holder, or toilet paper roll, excuse me. Okay, now it's kind of like a little hat, right? But it doesn't fit quite well. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna put some tape on it. Now what I like to do, if I know that I'm gonna have to be taping something, and there's gonna be more than one piece of tape that needs to go to it, like say for presents or something, I like to plan ahead and prepare. So I just go ahead and rip the tape and put it on a cup or a table or whatnot. And if your loved one has a little bit of trouble, you can always put it on the cup for them so that they can just have it. Remember, we want everyone to be as independent as possible. So once you have your tape and you've got your balloon on your toilet paper roll, you just want to make sure you tape it all up nice and tight so no air gets in. So we'll just go around a couple of times with it just to make sure all of the air holes are closed up. Oops. There we go. And see, I just have to pull it off. I'm not worried about trying to find where it begins or ends or getting frustrated. Everything is just ready to go. All right, so now comes the fun part. Let me just do one more. It's time to make the confetti. And this is fun because you can do really whatever you want. You can use a hole puncher if you've got that. Whoops, this sticky tape. You can use one of these. It's a scrapbook puncher. These are stars. You could do that if you'd like. You can also take the paper and a pair of scissors. And just so you know, they make up bigger scissors with an easier handle if your loved one is having trouble grabbing things. And you can just start cutting, right? So what I like to do is take just anything really. I'm gonna use a lunch bag because that's what's right next to me. Excuse me. So just take something that's a little bit bigger than the confetti that you're gonna make. So it'll be a catch-all. So I've just cut down the lines and then I'll just cut straight across. Excuse me. There we go. And you do want to make a pretty decent amount of confetti, but it's just like this. All right, and then there we go. Now, if it's easier maybe to pull, we can tear it too. It's confetti, right? So you can tear it into little pieces and that can be your confetti. No right or wrong way. Okay. Now, if you want to get really fancy, you can design the tube, the toilet paper roll, to make it a little bit more fancy or fun. Once you get all of your confetti, you want to just put it down. So what I'll do, you just kind of put it in the cup. And then you just pour it down. Oh, whoops, that's okay. All right. Now I have used 3 different colors here. You can use 1 color, you can use 20 colors. Again, it's really just whatever you prefer. Oh, these are from my cutout pieces. Okay, now, are we ready? We're gonna see how it works. So for the winner of game night, everyone can make one, and at the end, all right. Would this really be game night if we didn't make a game? Our next craft is going to be tic-tac-toe. We're going to use garden rocks that we found to paint our different sides, or teams if you will, and then make a bag to keep them in. So I'm going to paint this rock with acrylic paint. You can paint it with watercolor paint if you have that. You could use markers if you wanted to do that as well. Just whatever you'd like. So first, just gonna paint the rock. And you can decorate it if you wanna put polka dots on one of them, maybe make one a ladybug and one a bumblebee, but just paint the rock. Like so, like that. And then once it dries, the magic of movies, you can just make it your own, give it some fun. Right. So we're just putting a little orange on these blues. Our orange rock. You could use sticks if you wanted to do that instead of rocks. Okay. And then once we do that, if you've got a canvas bag or a tweed bag, you can use those. I'm using a lunch bag that I had in my cabinet. And what I'm gonna do is take a marker and make the board. So, all right, 2 lines. Here we go. So it's like that. And then, whenever you're ready to play, you can play with the craft that you made. Oh, we got a winner.
It's always a good idea to get our blood pumping before and after we settle in on a task or a game. We know that exercise and stretching are incredibly important for brain health. Research is showing that physical exercise improves our brain functioning and can help build new nerve cells in the brain, which leads to better brain health. Stretching has been shown to increase serotonin levels. Serotonin is the hormone that helps stabilize our mood and reduce stress. Serotonin makes us feel good. It decreases depression and anxiety. There are so many brain benefits when we exercise and stretch. We hope you'll incorporate some of these exercises into your daily routine.
Hi, my name is Valerie Martin. I'm a physical therapist from the University of Kentucky, and we're here today at the Lexington Senior Center to demonstrate some exercises for you. So my hope is that you'll watch this video, do exercises along with us. I'm very thankful to my 2 volunteers that were so gracious to come and demonstrate the exercises for me. So the first exercise that we're gonna do is a shoulder or upper body exercise, and it's called shoulder retraction. And so you can either do this exercise in sitting or you can do it standing. So I'm gonna have, if one of you all ladies don't mind to stand up for me, so we'll kind of demonstrate it both ways. You're gonna start with good posture. You're gonna squeeze your shoulder blades together. Keeping your shoulders down away from your ears. Imagine that somebody has placed a finger right between your shoulder blades and you're just gonna squeeze your shoulder blades together. And then you're gonna relax. And so as you do this, I want you to think about making sure that you're not arching your back. It's not a big motion. You should just feel those muscles right between your shoulder blades kind of pinched together. Good, and you can relax now. So when you do this at home, I encourage you to do this for 30 seconds. You can start with one set, and then as you get better or it gets easier, you can move to 2 sets of 30 seconds. So the next exercise we're gonna do is also an upper body strengthening exercise. So you can, again, do this from a seated position or from a standing position. So you're just going to start with your arms down by your side, hands facing in towards your body, thumbs pointing up towards the ceiling as you raise your arms up, kind of at a diagonal. So almost imagine that you are making a V with the opening out from you. And you're gonna raise your arms overhead and then back to your side. If you have any shoulder pain or discomfort, just go within whatever range you can comfortably do this. That may mean that you can't get to shoulder level, and that's perfectly okay. If you can go all the way overhead, that's okay too. You ladies can go ahead and take a break. When you do this, I would encourage you to do it for 30 seconds. At least initially. You can do it just with the weight of your arms. That's perfectly acceptable. If you want to add some weight, you can add some light dumbbells, or you can use bottles of water just to add a little bit of weight. I wouldn't do anything super heavy, and if you haven't been doing any exercise, please start with just your arms without the weight at first. So now that we've finished the upper body strengthening exercises, we're going to move on to an upper body stretching exercise. And so what I'm going to have you ladies do is, if you will reach your hands behind you and clasp your hands, and Cheryl, if you don't mind, I'm going to have you go ahead and swing your legs this direction so they can see you from the side. Perfect. You're going to push your hands down towards the floor, kind of lengthening your arms, keeping your elbows straight. And then if you need a little bit more of a stretch, you can kind of lift your hands away from your back. Now when you're doing this stretch, I'm gonna have you do 3 sets of 30 seconds. Make sure that you're breathing as you do the stretch. A lot of times people have a tendency to wanna hold their breath, so you wanna make sure you're breathing in and out slowly. That helps to relax your muscle, which will allow you to get a better stretch. Perfect. Now we're going to move on to lower body strengthening exercises. And so again, we can do this either seated or standing. And so I'm going to have you start to just march in place. And so when you're seated, you're just going to lift one knee up and then the other. Perfect. And when you're standing, you can do the same thing. Now, if you want to do it standing, but you feel like your balance is a little bit of an issue, you could always do this standing close to a countertop or with the back of a chair in front of you so that you have something to hold on to. You can also vary the how high you're raising your knee. So if it's too difficult to raise your knee to hip level, that's totally okay. You can just lift it a little bit off the floor. All right, you girls can go ahead and relax. Good job. So we're gonna go on to the next lower body strengthening exercise, which is sit to stand. So you can go ahead and have a seat. So when you're doing this at home, I prefer that if you're using a chair, that you actually position the chair so that it's back against the wall so it's not gonna slip. You have the option of doing it with a chair with armrests, which will allow you to use the armrest if you need to kind of assist you with getting up out of the chair, or you can do it with a chair without armrest. You can even do it at the edge of the bed. That's a little bit higher, so it makes it a little bit easier. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna start with your feet about shoulder width apart. You're gonna lean forward, so bring your shoulders and your head forward as you go ahead and lift your hips up out of the chair and go ahead and stand. And then you're just gonna sit back down. I'm gonna have you continue to do that. And so at home, you'll do this for a minute. Starting out with 1 set, you can progress to 2 sets as you get stronger and it gets a little bit easier. You all can go ahead and just rest there. So this is an exercise that I feel like is really important for everybody to practice. 1, it's something that we need to do every day. And 2, it's a great lower body strengthening exercise. Plus, it gets your heart rate going just a little bit. So it also can be a little bit of a cardiovascular exercise. So now we've finished the lower body strengthening exercises, we're gonna move on to a lower body stretch. And so this stretch is going to stretch out the hip flexor and the quad, which is the big muscle that runs down the front of the leg. I'm gonna show you two different options. So T's gonna show us using a step stool. So you can place one foot on the step. You want to think about tucking your hips under so that you're getting a stretch down the right front part of your leg there. And then I'm gonna have Cheryl show us in sitting. So I'm gonna have you, if you just scoot kind of to the edge of your seat so that that left leg is free, you're gonna tuck that leg back, good. And so again, she's getting that muscle in a lengthened position, and so she should feel a stretch down the left front part of her leg. So with these stretches, you're gonna hold for 30 seconds, and then you're gonna take a break. You can switch legs. You're gonna do 3 sets of 30 seconds on each leg. You can go ahead and relax. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today and to do these exercises. I encourage you to continue to do these exercises or other exercises. Movement is so good. It's good for our bodies, it's good for our mood, it's good for our mind. And so 5 times a week is a great goal for movement. And T and Cheryl, thank you so much for being with me today to demonstrate the exercises.
A game night would not be complete without some good food. Tanya is going to share her recipe for game day nachos that is sure to be a hit. Let's see how we make this delicious dish.
Today we'll be making a fresh pico de gallo salsa with locally grown tomatoes, and we'll show you how to make a quick and easy guacamole as the second step. And all of those steps are us on our way to making some wonderful game day nachos that are great for parties or for tailgating or for just having by yourself. They make a great snack at any time. So we're gonna get started on that pico de gallo first because we want to let that sit for a moment and let everything get happy together. We will start with our tomatoes. I'm gonna cut those into quarters. And I'm cutting out what appears to be a little divot. That's the core that I'm taking out of there. I'm gonna do that to 3 medium-sized tomatoes. Now we have all of these quarters that don't have cores. I'm going to slice those in half. And then I'm going to turn those 2 halves on their side. And then I'm going to slice those into strips. Once I get some strips, I can cut across those, and that gives me a dice. I'm going directly into the bowl with everything I'm using today. A lot of the time I'll use small prep bowls, but we don't have to do that for salsa because we can just cut it up and toss it together. And you want to repeat that for all your tomatoes. If you can, save all of the juice that comes from your tomatoes. Every once in a while you may want to lift your cutting board up and dump it into your bowl. And also, through experiments with machines that can actually taste, Heston Blumenthal has found out that the tastiest part of the tomato is actually the gel that's found around the seeds. So I don't take anything out of this recipe. We just keep it, the whole part of the tomato in, skin, seeds, and all. As soon as I get my tomatoes in the bowl, I'm going to sprinkle them with just a pinch of salt. And what this does is the salt combines with all the water in the tomatoes, or what we consider the juice, and it helps the tomatoes to give off their juice. So I'm grabbing my salt and I'm just gonna pinch like a 3-finger pinch and just enough on top, and that will help wick out all of the juice in the tomatoes. While that's happening, we're going to cut up our onion. This is a huge onion, even for a half of an onion. I'm gonna take out the outer part and the papery bit. The root is still on here, as you can see. We're gonna do a small dice on this. And I'm gonna make several horizontal cuts, almost, but not quite all the way through the root end of this onion. I'm gonna make them about 3/8 of an inch apart, thereabouts, because I want a small dice on this. I'm not going very deep into the onion this time, because I'm not gonna cut the whole onion. We won't need this much onion for the amount of tomatoes that we have. Now I'm gonna turn this away from me, and the root end is away from me because I'm not gonna cut through that still. And I'm gonna press my knife straight down. I'm not sawing or pushing, I'm just going straight down. Again, about 3/8 of an inch apart, so that I get tiny little strips that when we turn the onion back where it was, and cut across those strips, once you cut across all of those little 3/8 inch strips you've made, you have a perfect small dice. Like I said, I'm just tossing everything in the bowl as I cut it. And this is a nice way to see if I've got the right ratio. You can kind of go by what your tastes dictate, but I'm gonna stir it together here. And that way I see, yeah, that's a beautiful amount of onion. Next will be a sweet bell pepper first. I'm gonna leave the jalapeno pepper till last, and I'll show you why. I like to do green because we have a lot of sweet and tangy things in salsa. This is the tiny bit bitter. If you want something a little sweeter, like for a mango or a pineapple salsa, you may want to use a red or a yellow or an orange pepper. This is a little bit bitter, so it's going to give us a nice contrast with everything we have in here. I'm going to take the top of the pepper off and the bottom. You can keep those pieces and you can slice those up as well. I'm slicing straight down in between two of the ribs of the pepper, and that gives me an opening. And then I can just cut each of the ribs out. And as I sort of pull on this center piece here, which contains the seed pod and all the ribs, and that I can just discard that and press that down. This gives me a nice rectangle to slice into strips again. I'm gonna cut it in half because that makes this a manageable size. I'm going to make thin slices of the green bell pepper because I want it around the same size as the onion. And cut across those strips to make your dice. I'm gonna add this half of the pepper and see what I think about that amount. Going straight into the bowl. And give it a stir to see how that is distributed in there. Maybe just a little bit more. So you can go directly by the recipe, or you can kind of eye it to your taste. You can always add. It's very difficult to take back out. All right, so we have some fresh garlic here. These are big cloves, so I'm just going to use one today. To get it out of the paper, I'm placing it on a flat side, putting my knife on top of it and hitting that with the palm of my hand or a fist, and that will pop that out of the paper. We're going to mince the garlic today. We just want teeny tiny pieces distributed throughout the salsa. So once you get the paper off, you can slice up your garlic if it's big enough. If not, you may just want to cut the little woody end off and discard that, and then do this next move. You put the tip of your knife down, put your hand flat on the spine of the knife, and lift and lower it, rocking back and forth over the garlic. A mince is about 1/8 of an inch cubed, and basically you may need to knock the garlic off your knife so it does get chopped, and move it around a couple times. just a couple times more. And you should have a wonderful mince. We're gonna put that in there. Stir that around so that everything marries together nicely. And lastly, let's see, we'll have the cilantro. Now, all you do is pluck the leaves off the stems. You can use the stems of cilantro, unlike a lot of green herbs like this. Cilantro stems taste like the leaves, but we don't want that texture in our salsa right now. But we just want the cilantro leaves today, so we're pulling them off. And we want about 2 tablespoons worth. Now, if you're one of the people who has the misfortune of tasting cilantro, and when you taste cilantro it tastes like soap, then you want to leave this step out. But if you love cilantro, add as much as you'd like to this salsa. It really is up to your taste. Very tender green leaves of herbs like this, the easiest way to kind of get them into a mince is to bunch them a little bit on top of one another and then very gingerly lightly roll or kind of pack them together. You don't want to crush them because you don't want to bruise them. They'll turn dark really fast. But if you can kind of bunch them up a little bit and then start to slice really tiny ribbons off the leaves. Now you have to be careful with your claw when you do that. If you have big leaves like sage or basil, then it's nice to just stack them and roll them like a burrito. So I'm gonna mince it up like we did the garlic. You don't wanna go over it too many times because again, you're gonna bruise those leaves. So I'm gonna take that. That is about 3 tablespoons worth. And we'll throw that in. That may not be enough for some people. Lastly, we're going to do the jalapeno. So for a hot chili pepper like this, the substance that makes it hot is called capsaicin, and it's in the oil that's inside this pepper. Capsaicin can react with your skin and cause what is very similar to a chemical burn. So I'm going to put some gloves on before I touch this hot pepper and cut it apart and get the oil on my cutting board and my hands and everywhere. And this is why I do the jalapeno pepper last, because if I did it anywhere in between, those hot oils would still be on my cutting board. So even if I wore gloves while I cut it, if I didn't wear them the whole time, I would still possibly get that oil on my hands. I'm gonna cut the stem off, and since this is a tiny pepper, we're just gonna split it in half. Now that capsaicin is concentrated in the seeds and the ribs of the pepper. So depending on how hot you want your salsa, depends on how many of the seeds you leave in. But if we want sort of just a mild salsa, we're gonna cut out all those ribs and all those seeds and remove them. We do that just by making little slices through the ribs, and in a similar fashion to the bell pepper, removing the whole seed pod. We're gonna flatten the pepper, just like we did with the bell. And now we wanna make tiny slices, about 1/8 of an inch or so. The jalapeno, you definitely want distributed evenly. You don't want anyone getting a huge bite and all they taste is heat. You want all of these flavors to mingle together. So we'll cut across here. So this is almost a mince as it is. Mince them up with that rocking motion like we've used. And we'll do the second half exactly the same way. If you don't like heat, you can leave the jalapeno out altogether. But we'll add that in and give it a stir. I can add more salt now. And then the final piece of this is the acid that will bring it all together. And I have a lime here. I'm gonna cut this lime in half. Now, if you don't have a juicer, you may wanna roll the lime, press it and roll it. That'll break up all of those little juice cells inside the lime. But I do have a press, or if you have a reamer, that helps to get juice out. And we're gonna place this in the juicer and squeeze. And that may be enough. We'll stir all of these elements together and give it a taste and see. So we have tasting spoons right here. You want to get a little bit of everything and take a taste. I feel these are really sweet tomatoes, so I'm going to balance that out with a little, maybe not the whole lime, but a little bit more lime juice and just a touch more salt. Now that is a perfect pico de gallo right there. It is good to eat a fresh pico within about 12 hours of making it. Now remember when I told you at the beginning that we would learn a really quick and fast way to make guacamole? We're gonna do that right now. So when you're choosing your avocados at the grocery store, you just wanna press on the stem end. And if there's a little bit of give to it, then that's typically a nice ripe avocado. If it doesn't give at all, if you have a couple days, that might be one you want to use. You can just leave it outside of your fridge and it'll get softer. If it completely mushes in, it might be too ripe. So just a little bit of give as you're pressing, and this should be a good avocado. Put it on your cutting board and put your knife into it till you hit that big pit in the center, and then you just roll the avocado. This is the safest way to slice one until you meet your cut, and then twist. Oh, that's a lovely one. So, and then to get the pit out, the safest way is to use a spoon and kind of dig the pit out gently. And you can throw that away. And if it's really ripe, this is not quite mushy. This will be just perfect. So I'm going to show you how to dice the avocado. So holding it on against your cutting board, you're not cutting toward yourself, you're just going to let the tip of your knife follow the inside of the peel. But just don't put your fingers right behind, because sometimes the knife can go through the peel. So I've made strips, and then I'm going to cut across those strips into a dice. And I'll do that with both sides of this avocado. You can use a spoon to scoop out your dice. And if your avocado is really ripe, sometimes you can even just give it a squeeze and all your dice will come out. Especially if you don't need a dice, if you're gonna smush it up anyway. So now we have our diced avocado. We'll take a fork and smush it up. You can also use an old school potato masher, the metal potato mashers. Those are really good at doing this part. And you just mash. This might be a great partner skill. So while someone is making the pico, someone else could be mashing up the avocado. Someone else could be putting the nacho ingredients together, and then everybody could have part in putting this fun party dish together. So you're just gonna smush a little bit. I like mine sort of chunky. If you want it really pureed, you may wanna do something like put it into a food processor, but you have to be careful. Avocados are very fatty, and if you over process them, they're gonna set up kind of hard. So that's about how I like it. Now, if you just wanna leave it an avocado mash like that, my advice would be to go ahead and salt it and put a little lime juice on top so that it doesn't turn brown. Kind of goes to a dark olivey brown color, and we wanna prevent that. However, we're making guac, and the easiest way to do that is take that wonderful pico that we had, take 2 or 3 spoons of that, because it's all the same ingredients that you'd put in guac, right? And then just mix that up together. And the acid in your pico will help the guac keep from turning brown. Like I said, there is a lot of fat in avocados, so taste this once you've got everything in it. The amount of salt that is perfect in a pico may need to be adjusted for a guac. Okay, so there's pico, there's guac. Now we need to come up with our nachos. For nachos, you want a sheet pan or a cookie sheet or a pizza pan. I always like to line my pans with parchment to help speed up cleanup. And we have some light restaurant style tortilla chips here, and we're just gonna scatter them on the pan. But spread them out a little bit. If you are a meat eater, this is a great way to start. This is just some roasted shredded chicken with some taco seasoning on top. You could brown ground beef. You could use anything that you kind of have hanging around if it's cooked, and you can dice it up or shred it up like we have here. Sprinkle it around. It doesn't have to be perfect because you are gonna kind of bunch and stack these up when you put them on the plate. If you don't want to add any kind of animal protein, then a bean might be nice for some protein and for some different texture. I've got some black beans here, but they're a great addition to our seasoned chicken meat that we already have on here. These are just canned black beans. You could use canned or you could cook your own from dried. If you use canned, we drained and rinsed these to get some of the sodium off. There's a lot of sodium in this dish. You don't need the excess from the canning process of the beans. You could put olives or anything that you like on Southwest or Tex-Mex food. And then the final topping is some cheese. This is a Kenny Mattingly's Farmhouse cheddar. You could also use pepper jack or any kind of really good melty cheese. Would go well on nachos. And you want enough to kind of help stick all of the chips together. I believe the recipe calls for about 2 cups of shred. We'll just go ahead and put that on there. And then you just pop this into the oven. You want to get everything heated through, and you want to melt all that cheese. I've got the oven on 400 degrees. Depending on how much stuff you put on top, it may take anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. I'm gonna leave it in for about 6 to 7 for this amount of food on top and for this cheese to melt. You don't wanna burn your magnificent creation, so you may wanna take a look at it first before your timer goes off. Okay, so our nachos have been in the oven for a few minutes. Everything's nice and hot and the cheese is all melting. So we're gonna assemble our plate for the party or for the tailgate. It's best to get everything up off the pan as soon as it comes out of the oven because the cheese will solidify when it cools. And now you can pile up your nachos like you see when you get them at a restaurant. Once everything is on top and sort of held together with the cheese, you can make a stack. If you are serving these for a long period of time, they will get less crispy as the day goes on. So you may want to either do them in batches, or you can always, if you haven't put a lot of toppings on, if you just have this, the meat and the cheese on your nachos, then you can pop them back in the oven and crisp up the chips again and get everything nice and warm and melty. Okay, so you have a nice big pile. You can add anything you want at this point. But since we have gone to the trouble of making all of this, we'll add some pico and some of our fresh guac and scatter that around. You might also want to put a bowl on the side. That way, if people don't get as much as they would like, when they pull off a stack, they can add more to it. And then add your guac, maybe as a garnish on top. Strategically placed on each side. Now here's where you could do something like your olives or more jalapeno slices, some pickled red onion, anything and everything that you think would go well with this dish you can do. And don't forget a little sour cream. So here is your game day nachos.
I cannot wait to try that recipe. Did you know that some people show up to a game night just for the food? And those nachos are a great way to stimulate the senses. So much color and flavor, the aromas too. Even the act of putting these ingredients together can stimulate our brain power. And cooking creates purpose, which is actually protective for your brain health and well-being. Even cooking together may create a sense of purpose and meaning. Did you know that eating together is important for brain health too? Anytime we can engage socially is good for the brain. Studies are showing how important socialization is to brain health. Here are some ways you can be more social.
It has been clinically proven that socialization helps us retain our brain power. Even if you have dementia, being with others can be helpful for your brain and general well-being. If you're looking for ways to be more socially engaged, we have a few ideas. You might want to reach out to your local library. Libraries do more than just provide books. They are now offering classes, and those classes encourage meeting people. Classes may be offered around topics such as genealogy, birding, and even photography. Another idea is to try your local senior center. Senior centers throughout the country are providing space for seniors to get to know each other. Not only do they provide lunch, they also have programs that bring people together. Classes like Tai Chi, knitting, poetry, bingo, music, and some even take trips. This is an excellent way to meet other people. Whatever you do, don't do it alone. Find a friend, find a group, get social.
Those are some great ideas. I hope that you are able to take some of them and incorporate them into your day-to-day interactions. No matter if you decide to host a game night or just go out to eat with friends or family, we hope you find ways to connect with others and to engage your mind. These different activities have the potential to boost your brain health. We will see you next time on Brain Boost.